Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you happen to be listening to this, or whenever you happen to be listening to this. This is the Sales for the Nigerian Wedding Industry podcast. And the reason why I'm mentioning that upfront right now, even though customarily I haven't done that in the past, is because there are a couple of people, regular listeners, who somehow have run into my other podcast, and one of them admitted that in the beginning he was confused. Since we were talking about traditional weddings and what brides and grooms are to expect of the whole process. So, I'm sure you've guessed it that my second podcast, that one is called So You're Getting Married, is geared towards brides and grooms, and it's just me riffing and talking about different things that they should expect in the wedding planning process, with maybe some tips and tricks and useful insights for those of us who are newlyweds. So that's the second podcast. And so because of that, in order to avoid the confusion, whenever I'm starting either podcast, I'm going to make an announcement at the beginning so that for those of you who only want to listen to me for business related stuff, you know that you can stick right here and you can skip that. And for those who are more interested in the personal stuff that we discuss about on the other podcast, you can remain over there. But then again, there's a much easier solution. Whatever app it is that you use to listen to these shows, either of these shows or both of them, whether you're using iTunes or Stitcher or SoundCloud, you're going to be able, not on SoundCloud, what's the other one? Spotify, yes, on Spotify and the rest of them. There's a subscribe feature. So all you have to do is subscribe, and then all the episodes are lined up there for you to listen. And so you don't have to wait until I push out and promote things on social, and you don't have to risk running into the other podcast. So let's get into the meat and potatoes of what we have lined up today. We're still on the sales clinic. That's the what's his name again? Godwin. Yes, G Power. We're running through scenarios of questions that he could ask his customers to find out how serious that they are. And if you remember, the whole point of the session with Mr. G Power was to find customers who can afford his products and services without having to rely on bank financing. So my diagnosis was that this was a qualifications problem. That's basically he wasn't asking the right kind of questions of the clients, and so that is what put us on this path that we are right now, where we're looking at possible questions that he could ask his clients. And of course, to be able to see if there's any insight from these sorts of questions, to see if we event and wedding industry professionals can use these sorts of tricks as well. So one of the questions that we looked at was for couples, let's say elderly couples who the kids have already left the house. And for some people, having inverters, solar panels, and these sorts of things installed, it's really more about the kids. So when the kids have grown up and left the house, they're at university or they're married or whatever, some people really don't think that there is a need. And indeed, I did live in the same compound with one of those such couples. So all the kids had left the house, and even though light was really bad where we stayed, we got a generator, but they, quite frankly, didn't bother. Maybe they would bother with a generator when the grandkids happened to be in town, but they were just fine living the way that they were, elderly couple. Maybe they weren't cooking much, I don't know, but for some reason they didn't think they had any need for alternative power solutions, even though they were of means. So this man, who happens to be my landlord, was rumored to be a multi-millionaire. So now, in this case, if you are in G-Power situation and you sell inverters, solar panels, and generators, or whatever it is that you sell, you're not going to make much headway speaking to this kind of couple, because even though they can afford it and they can stroke you a check quite easily, for them, there's no urgency there. They would have done it if the kids were around or if the grandkids are around, but it's just both of them alone And so, quite frankly, they see no reason why they should. So, in your conversations with possible customers, clients, if you are in G Power's situation, it'll be one question that you would have to ask from the get go. Oh, I've noticed that the kids are all grown, they've left the house, so it's just you and mommy that are left in this house. Are you guys comfortable with the way things are, or are you guys really considering taking the decision on something like this now, getting an inverter or a backup system and stuff like that? And the responses that you might get could range from a number of things. They could say, "Oh yes, we're going to go ahead with that, even though the kids are not here. We are we are absolutely committed to being comfortable in our old age." And then you get to ask them more questions, about what comfort means for them. What's important to them. Is it that they have access to the fridge and the microwave all the time, or to the TV and the air conditioner? And then that would determine the different products or different kinds of batteries that you would have to that you would now recommend to them. And in that case, you'd be going ahead. But then again, if they say, we're just a bunch of old farts, there's no point in going ahead with this. The grandchildren are hardly around here anyway. So there's no point. We're not going ahead with it. Some people might think that this is a bad answer, but it actually is a good answer, because you have saved yourself a lot of back and forth. Because it's possible that you could be having the conversation with this old couple, and then they want to be polite. They don't want to let you down. Maybe they're thinking, should we do this to support this young man or to encourage him or something? And they're hemming and hawing. And the conversation could easily stretch out 3 weeks, maybe a month. And at the end of the day, the answer comes back to a no, because in this kind of situation, remember, we're all about using people's motivations to advance the sale. If there's no motivation there from the beginning, there's no amount of magic that you're going to do to be able to get them to take that next step. So it's really important that you ask these questions, because whenever you assume, whenever there are assumptions on either side, sometimes unpleasant things happen. You enter into the deal on terms that are not favorable to either of you, or you could waste your time doing lots of toasting and chasing and follow-up, and they weren't really going to go ahead with the deal in the first place. So that was my recommendation, one of the recommendations to G Power. And how does this apply to those of us in the wedding and the event space? Well, it's quite simple. In running our businesses, we all have make or break situations that we've come up with because we've been interacting with people for a while. So it makes sense to have all these make or break conditions as part of the conversations, and you ask questions about those. For instance, I've run into an event planner here in Abuja. I know that she's a rarity because she's the only one that I've met who has this opinion. But in her own opinion, there's no point in you having an event planner if you're going to have less than 20 guests. Because for her, she thinks if it's less than 20, you can't justify the expense. And really, once you have the catering sorted, everything else can be freestyled around, especially if you already have an MC for the event. So there's no point for having an event planner. Now, again, this is not my own personal recommendation, and I'm sure that this is not the opinion of event planners in Abuja at large, but it's just the opinion of this, my particular friend. Less than 20 guests, there's no point in having an event planner. So, for someone like her, since that's your make or break situation, it's a question that you should ask up front. Okay, so we've looked at the list. It's you, it's mommy, it's the grandkids, it's Mr. and Mrs. Adejo, and so on. So it's just going to be 16 people. I really don't think there's any need to have a wedding planner in this case, because I'm not going to be able to bring I'm only going to be able to bring limited value in this situation. That's my own professional opinion, but is this something that you still want to go ahead with? So you've given your make or break, you've enlightened them, they will hear it and they will either say yes or they will say no. And if they say yes, that they're going to go ahead with it, well, you've done your own bit. You go ahead, you get the check and you perform to the best of your abilities. And then in the other way, if they say no, because that's precisely what they were thinking all along, it's best that came out now rather than everything go ahead and then at the end of the day there's minor grumbling here and there, like this wedding planner, this event planner, what did she do anyway? Nothing special, we just wasted money, blah blah blah, stuff like that. So we all need to ask all these questions about all these make and break situations, about all these conditions, about specific situations that we know our prospective customers have. We need to ask all these questions up front, find out the motivations, and that is what we're going to use to close the sale. So, I hope you guys have been able to get the point with the last set of questions that we have explored these past couple of days, that the whole point of this is we're trying to get to the bottom of whether there is any urgency or whether there's any sense of importance with the task at hand. So it's absolutely critical to the sales process. We have to dig deep, get to their own internal motivations, because there's nothing that we can do to move them forward if it's not important or if they are not ready to take that next step. So, for the future episodes, we're going to continue in the same vein. We're going to be looking at implication and need payoff questions. For those of you who've been listening from the beginning and you're familiar with the framework that I mentioned, the SPIN framework, that's Neil Rackham's framework. That's situation questions, problem questions, implication questions, and need payoff questions. We'll start looking at specific examples of implication and need payoff questions. The whole point of these questions basically is to unearth the problem and then to really dig it in so that the prospective customer realizes that they have a problem. So in this case, let's say you're an event planner. The whole point is not just for everybody to realize, everybody at the table, that's you, the bride, the groom, parents of the bride and groom, not just to realize that there's a problem, but you really dig it in so that they realize how significant the problem is, or why it's really important that someone of your skill and expertise handle this particular event. So those are the kind of questions that we'll be looking at in future episodes. So thank you very much, guys, for listening to the Sales for the Nigerian Wedding Industry podcast. I'm your host, Abuja-based photographer Tavishima Ayede. Thank you very much for your time and attention. As we're rolling over into 2021, I'd like to wish you guys a happy New Year's celebration with friends, family, and loved ones. And also to remind you guys, just hang in there. Yes, I know there's no significant difference between December 29th and January 1st. But having a positive and hopeful attitude is something that could make a difference, especially since right now we kind of know what the playbook is going forward. So earlier in March or in February, depending on where you are in the world, yes, at that time it was sprung upon us and it just seemed to come out of nowhere. But the thing is, we've had a couple of months, is this like 9 months now, to deal with this whole thing of lockdowns, full lockdowns, partial lockdowns, having to organize events safely, and what that means and things like that. So we've had some time to be able to work out how this is going to affect our businesses. And so because of that, I really do think that those of us in the wedding and event space can remain hopeful, because even though it's not quite what we're used to, at least we now have a playbook that we've been working on for the past 8 months, and we should be able to use that to grow our businesses in 2021. So thank you very much, guys, for listening, and thank you for being with me over the past 80-something episodes. I'll have to confirm before the next recording. Thank you for your love and support. Really appreciate it. Catch you guys in 2021 and have a wonderful New Year's celebration with your friends, your family, and your loved ones. And we'll pick up the hustle again on January 1st, January 2nd, whenever it is we pick up the baton, and we'll continue with the hustle. So thank you very much, guys, for listening. I'll catch you at the next episode.